Good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. I am at the Dix Hills Diner. It's Entrepreneurs Across America Diner Discussions, and I have a special guest, an old friend. We grew up together. We went to high school together, believe it or not. And Arthur Germain wrote a book, the Art of Brandtelling, and he's here to talk about storytelling, storytelling for businesses. Arthur, say hello, and
Hey everybody, and it's true, we went to school together. We actually acted on stage together back in the day.
back in the day, yeah, he was more the star. I was like the, which one were you? I was in the back somewhere. So Arthur, tell us, congratulations on the
Yeah,
book.
thank you very much. Thank you
Tell
very
us, tell us about the book. Tell us about brand telling. Tell us about your company.
much.
What do you
so,
do?
So brand telling is the name of my company. It's also been this approach that I take for brand storytelling. And I tell this story in the beginning of the book that I went to see Seth Godin, who's a marketing guru and writer.
He's a Google guy.
Yeah, he'd been at Yahoo and had
Yahoo.
done their marketing, and I went to see him speak. And after he spoke, he was signing his books. I went down, and he says, "So Arthur, what do you do?" And at the time, I was running a tech PR agency, and I said, "Well, I run this tech PR agency." And he looks at me, and he cocks his head sideways, and goes, "Well, how's that different?" And I was stuck for an answer. I'm standing there like an idiot in front of Seth Godin, this guy who I admire, and I didn't have an answer. So when I came back, I started talking to my team, and I said, "What makes us different?" And my background is as a journalist, a writer, an editor,
Okay.
and then I'd gone to the dark side and done PR, and I said, with the team, we said, you know what we do? We do the same thing now that we did when we were writing. We sit around a table and we say, what's going to make this a story? What's going to make this interesting to people we're trying to reach?
I just got a comment.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't. I started in the PR. Maybe I didn't have the talent to write, so I never saw it as the dark side. I saw it as the opportunity.
We used to joke, when I was a writer, PR guys would contact you and you go, I don't know if this is a story. And the very first time I pitched a story from the PR side and I got hung up, I turned to one of my colleagues and said, "What was that?" And they're like, "Payback." They're like, "Now you know what it feels like to get hung up on the other side." But the thing I learned is that I learned to tell a better story.
Sure.
And there was a guy who I worked with, a guy named Matt, who I thought was fantastic at this. I would hear him make a pitch, tell the story, and there would be a pause, and then he would say, because the guy would say, "No, I don't think so, Matt. It's not the right story for me." He would say, "What would make this a better story for you?" Okay. And I've always thought that that's a really interesting, meaning that Matt believes fully that there's a story here. It's just not the right story for you. And so that's really the story behind the book and behind what we do is
What's your story?
we try to capture the story. And you know what the story ends up being? It's not all the features. It's not the all the little pieces. It is the value and the benefits that people take away from working with you, and that you can provide it. So you could say, I conduct a podcast with people at the Dix Hills Diner, and people watch it. But that's not the story. The story is I talk to entrepreneurs, and everybody's got some unique reason that they became an entrepreneur.
And they do it, and then I'm dear friends with the owners here, and Mike, the chef, said to me, he asked me who has good Polish food on Long Island,
Right.
and he wants to put pierogies on the menu.
Okay.
And so we started talking, and I said to him, in this neighborhood, in Dix Hills, in the Huntington area, everything that is Eastern European, whether it's pierogies or blintzes, I said, defer to the Jewish name, on your menu. And I said, and on the plate, I said, you got to put red cabbage with that. I said, so when somebody eats it and orders it, it looks like the same plate Grandma made for them, and you're calling that storytelling. And it's the same thing in a menu. That's part of the story. You come here for the food your grandmother made.
Right, come here for you. The story, the food your grandmother made. the friend that you made
Yeah.
over the meal, the feeling you had.
Brings back a memory. Oh my
Sure.
God, and that's part of it. And I said, in this neighborhood, this is all the same, whether it's a pierogi or a blintz or whatever you call it. It's the same food. And I said, Jackie Mason makes jokes about how Jewish food doesn't taste good. I said, it's delicious if you know what you're ordering. And I said, thanks. And I said, the red cabbage goes with it. He said, absolutely. And he said, but if it's Polish or East German or sauerbraten, I said, just defer to it the right way, because he understands the menu is his story, and the way he tells his story about the Dix Hills Diner.
Yeah.
And that's, I think what your book kind of, everybody, like you just said, everybody has a story.
Yeah, everybody has a story, and you think about business stories. So brand telling stands for brand storytelling. It's
Brand
kind
storytelling.
of a made up word, but the idea is, can you tell that story? And so what I tell people is that you have to do these three things. You have to create, capture, and curate. So you create the story, right? You're going to create the story, and it's like, how did you and your brother found your business? What was the background? What was the founding story? Who are you helping? Or how do you help them? That's a lot of creation there. You're writing those stories down. Capture stories. Lots of people say case studies. I'm not a fan of that. I call them customer success stories. So what are the things that you did that helped make your customers successful? How did working with you, how did, a podcast like this help make someone successful, right?
How
So
about
you,
customer failure stories
yeah,
too?
you can capture those too. You
Okay.
can, we all wish it was like, I did this and it went here, but it's not,
No,
right? It's here, and then it's down here. And then the story bounces up and down.
And most overnight successes took years
not.
in the
Yeah,
making.
that's right. That's right. I always remember Bonnie Raitt accepting a Grammy and saying, "Look, I'm an overnight success," and everyone knows she's been in business for 20 years.
Yeah.
So the idea that sometimes you create it, sometimes you capture it, and then the really difficult part, you have to curate. And just like in a museum, you decide, does this get a painting, or does this other painting come here? And you're looking and saying, which of these stories am I going to use and tell on a regular basis?
But into business and into the restaurant, what makes the menu?
Yeah,
And-
what
and-
makes the menu is a great analogy, right? You're sitting there and saying,
And how do we menu
these
it?
are all really good foods, but they all can't fit on the menu
Yeah.
unless you're the cheesecake.
Unless you're
Then-
cheesecake.
then you just print another page and put it on the menu. But they don't know what curation means over
Yeah,
there.
okay.
So but curating as you say, curating the menu is really selecting. You've only got a limited amount of time. So
Yeah.
if you meet somebody, right? I introduce you to somebody and you want to talk to them. You have 500 stories. Which of those one you're going to pick
Which
to
is
tell
the one
that time?
So what's your favorite story in the book?
Yeah, so my favorite is the chapter 6 in here, which is what I call, I have to just look up what the full title is. It's this 5 steps for telling your own powerful and differentiated story, and I list through kind of these 5 steps to go through to ask you, they're questions really, to ask you to help you build your powerful story. And that one, I tell people, if you want to just read one chapter and see what the book's like, go check out chapter 6.
Okay, read chapter 6. Okay, where do people get the book?
So the book is available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle, or off of my website as a downloadable ebook. And I
Okay.
put a bundle together. There's 7 different PDFs all in one on the website. But you can go to theartofbrandtelling.com,
The Art of Brandtelling.
and it'll send you to any of those locations from there.
All right, so tell us about the process of writing a book,
Yeah.
or is it your, I'm going to say 30 years in business now,
Yeah.
all culminating in a book?
I've always felt like, I think lots
And I
of
say
people
30
feel,
because I know how long he's
yeah,
been.
I've been doing it for a while. It's true. I've had the business itself. I've had since 2005, so 18 years.
Okay.
And then a good 12 years before that, working in both the publishing side, the PR and marketing side, before starting an agency. And so I've always felt like I had a book in me.
Okay.
And this past year, I've been writing articles for an online publication called Channel Futures.
Okay.
And I've been able to use some of those, curate some of those articles and other articles that I've created. So creating the articles in here wasn't as difficult. That's usually the hard part for everybody. I have to write. I had the written part. It was making sure that these were accessible to everybody.
Okay.
So if I wrote something for the IT kind of community, could I change it a little bit for most
Okay.
business owners? So I worked with my editor, Mark Kindley, a longtime editor, and he would look and say, "Hey, Arthur, this is interesting, but you need to explain this." And there were another, 5 or 6 pages that needed to be written to explain something.
I find the basic premises of most businesses are the same. Same concerns, and the one main concern is enough money coming in to pay the bills.
Yep.
We need the inflow has to be greater than the outflow.
Yes.
And then there's certain.
That's a really good. That's a really good.
I mean, that's
good basic one, right?
That's deep, I know. But secondly, different businesses are different. When I was in the food business selling to restaurants, we always joked that when you saw the lawyer or the doctor, or somebody like that go into the restaurant business, you didn't say walk away, run away, because one thing about the restaurant business, a lot of moving parts. Where a law firm doesn't have as many moving parts, the insurance agency doesn't have as many. The business is more straightforward. The guy who runs the restaurant, all we see is the menu.
Right.
We don't see the property taxes. We don't see the bathrooms clogging up. All the million other things that take a restaurant to run that he also or she also has to worry about. So we also knew the doctor and the lawyer, the banker, didn't have as many
Right.
moving parts.
As many moving parts, sure.
To in his other business or her other business. So we didn't just walk away. You ran because you knew 6 months they were going to be out. And you hear about all the failures in the restaurant business. But at the end of the day, and the failures in the restaurant business are people who were never in it before, who think, I know how to order food, I love eating out, I can own a restaurant, and they realize it's not the same thing. But it's all about storytelling.
Yeah.
And it comes down to what's the story, what makes somebody want to eat here, what makes somebody, even the law firm, you see, my father started the firm, now I'm in the firm, and blah, 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 and it's been family run, and the people have come here, and Susie's worked here for 25 years, and Bob has worked here for 15, and they're part of the family, and we treat them like family, and everybody tells that story, a lot of families out
Right.
there, but even Family Farm, you see the sign and the story, and they tell you what it's about, and who they are, and what they're trying to capture, and that's what you help people do.
Well, and I think what's interesting is you said you want to certainly you want to have more on the top line that lets you keep more on the bottom line, right?
Okay.
So
That's why he was the better
lots of-
writer than I was.
well,
I said
lots of-
inflow versus outflow. He said top line, So.
but lots of companies will say to me, right? Well, what's the ROI?
Okay.
What's the return on investment for investing in my brand? And I say, well, it's a great question. Like they'll say, will you brand, if I invest in the brand, is it going to help me with sales? And I say, what really helps you with sales? Good salespeople help you with sales, right? Having a good product, having a good thing helps you with brand. But
And
having a
good
good
salespeople
brand,
are good storytellers.
yeah, they are. They are the best.
Yeah, but having a good brand.
But having a good brand increases your profitability.
Okay.
Meaning,
Sure.
this, we've all gone to those restaurants where we've had the same steak dinner, but we've paid a good premium for it.
Sure.
Right? The brand is what lets them
Brand.
charge for that higher
Absolutely.
premium, and so I think too many companies they miss that if they focus on the brand, making it be the story that people told after they came to visit them, if it was retail or if it was a B2B business, the story about what it was like to work with them, the value that they took away, the benefit they got. When people begin to realize that, your brand goes up.
I'll tell you a funny story. Not a funny story at all, but a local coffee manufacturer, they brew their own coffee, they have their own brand. They're a housing product and they were roasting product for Dunkin' Donuts. Now, Dunkin' Donuts has specs you have to follow to the T.
Right.
And this local family business, been around over 100 years, said when Dunkin' Donuts came in to check out their product, they learned more from Dunkin' Donuts in several months of working with them than they had learned from their grandfather, they had learned from their father, because Dunkin' Donuts protected their brand
Right.
with such ferocity and with such vigilance. These two brothers who are now running the company that their great-grandfather had started.
Right.
They thought they knew everything about roasting coffee. They knew a lot. Don't get me wrong. You don't last 100 years and not understand. But what they learned from Dunkin' Donuts for the privilege of roasting for them blew them away.
Yeah.
And they said, we run our business differently today because we had the opportunity to work with Dunkin' Donuts.
See, and that's a fantastic story, because what you just said was, it's not just a one-way thing, right?
No.
When we work with a good customer, we come away with a lot of learning, a lot
sure.
of energy, and that affects and impacts our brand.
Oh, God, yes.
You know,
And I mean,
if
Dunkin'
you're
Donuts
gonna-
is one of the more recognizable brands.
Sure, but there are all the millions of brands that we all do business with.
Sure.
If you go at it with the attitude, I know best,
No.
you know, you're not, like you said, the brothers might have gone, nobody knows coffee like us, until they can say, oh, wait a minute, we're wrong.
Well, they wanted the Dunkin' Donut business.
Sure.
And they knew it was a lot, but the way Dunkin' Donuts approached it was completely different than they did. And Dunkin' Donuts' main concern and primary focus the whole time with everybody from that company was, we want to make sure nothing happens to our brand.
Right.
We are going to protect this brand, whatever it takes. And if you aren't good enough to help us do that, you won't be our supplier. We'll find somebody who can. It was that simple for them. And what they understood, just the way they approach everything, was different because of the way they saw the way Dunkin' Donuts did it. It's also the biggest difference. Like you said, if you want to increase sales, hire better salespeople.
Right.
My biggest, when I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and people who don't think of themselves as entrepreneurs anymore because they've been in business for 20 years and they have a successful business, versus the bigger companies I've worked with. Sometimes the bigger companies are so much more entrepreneurial in spirit, believe it or not. They have a much more can-do attitude than the smaller company who needs it or doesn't
Right.
understand the level of excellence that the bigger company is trying to provide all the way down the line. Is a big difference, and I try to get so many of them to see, listen, you have to pay a little bit more attention to everything. If it's a guy who paints rooms in a house, what's the paint you're using?
Right.
And here's the problem. Yeah, the better paint might cost you a little bit more, but the room is going to be that much more better, and that much better, and you can charge more for it. If you know the quality is going to come out better, you can charge more. And that's
it's
part of your
interesting.
brand.
One of the things I tell companies is, are you getting testimonials from the customers that you serve, the clients that you work with?
Okay.
And when you do get those testimonials, and I'm discounting the ones that are like, Arthur's a good guy to work with. Okay, but the ones that say, Arthur had me look at my brand in a different way. He was able to help me realize that I needed to collect these stories, and those people get it, and that's the kind. It's like with your painter story. You want the people to say, "I went in, the room was really welcoming. It really felt the way that I wanted. It felt very complete."
Yeah.
That's better than it was white.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
painted it and it was white.
Yeah, it was clean, okay,
It was clean, exactly.
Yeah.
He does clean work. Okay, we all want that. That's
that's
really the bare minimum. He didn't spill paint on my new rug. That's the bare minimum that you expect. But the feeling of pulling the whole room together, all those. That's why you get those testimonials. But something you said reminded me. The brothers in the coffee shop, they had lessons learned. So one of the things my editor challenged me was, could you give a lesson learned? And in the end of every chapter, I have this considerations area.
Okay.
And this is an area, it's questions,
Consideration. Okay.
that you ask, or some ideas to do. So I tell everyone, grab at the beginning of the book, I say, grab a notepad and a pen, and, write these things down as you go through them. So, this one, like brainstorm, your brand voice and writing coach, how to use, this was on a chapter on how to use ChatGPT in your business.
Okay.
So if you do that, I feel like everybody gets something away from it. Because I always used to hate getting, this is a small book, 111 pages, 12 chapters, broken into 3 sections. I used to hate getting these books where it's like, okay, I read it, now what? You know, so what I wanted to at the very least was say, at the end of each of these, there's something you can do. You know, if you're working with one of your clients and you go, listen, you need to do some things to improve your brand. Yeah, I'm not sure I can afford somebody to go read the book and answer these questions. Do those things
Okay.
at the end. At least there's a takeaway, and people feel like they've been more active in doing something
You know,
for the
you
brand.
talk about collaboration and you know, brainstorming.
Yep.
You know, when Motown was in its heyday and producing records, Berry Gordy would ask the team a question. They would play the music by the artist, and before they released it, he would ask the team the same question. If you had $1 in your pocket, would you buy lunch or would you buy the album?
Yeah.
And depending on their answer, you know,
You know whether he had it.
he know if he had a hit or not. And when they said, no, I'd buy the album, I'd get lunch later. Okay, let's release it. But
Right.
it was that we needed the buy-in, we needed to make sure, and he was protecting the brand.
Mm-hmm.
He was, you know, and you know, we do things. We have a rental property, and my wife said, "Well, why would you do that? It costs money." I said, "What's the brand? It's what I call the Ciccone brand. We want it done a certain way, and there's profitability down the line. You can't look at, did I make more money this month than last month? Will I make more money next year than I made this year? Will I make
Right.
more money in 5 years? If we do something else, with the people who live here move to the new property because they like, you know, the Ciccone property. You know, they like having a landlord. Do I want? I also think you build tenants who want to pay you on time because they like the way you treat them.
Right.
You know, that's part of the brand.
That's part of the brand, sure.
And things of that nature. So I'm always trying to protect our brand. You know, but that's what I do.
You know, the brand is, ultimately the brand is the promise that you make. And,
Okay.
you know, lots of people hear the word brand and they think it's the logo or it's the color, it's the website. And, you know, it is all of those things. You know, these are my brand colors in here. That's my logo. But that's not the brand. The
brand
brand
is
is
the
the
promise
promise that you make. And for me, the brand promise is that I'm going to help you to, you know, create, capture, and curate those brand stories that help you to share your brand with other people. But you know, in your case, you're talking about the Ciccone property. So there's a promise. You know, in return for, you know, treating the property correctly and paying on time, we're going to make sure that the property is always taken care of. You know, if there's a problem, if you had a problem with the electricity, you had a problem with the plumbing, that you would be on it and you would take care of it, and you know, no questions. You wouldn't be sitting there having a
Yeah.
fight with them. You would do these things. Why? Because that's the brand promise you're making.
That's
to
the
them,
brand
right?
promise. And again, you know, Arthur, I'm going to end on that. The brand is the promise you make. Ultimately, the brand is the promise you make, and I love that. That sums it up in a quote. And thank you for
Yeah.
coming down.
Thanks very much.
Oh, my pleasure. And guys, please comment if you have interesting stories about brands. Let us know, and I'll get them off to Art. And
Yeah, you can find me at brandtelling.com and the book at theartofbrandtelling.com.
brandtelling.com and theartofbrandtelling.com. Arthur, thank you so much. It's a
Yep.
pleasure. And we've been trying to get this for a while.
Yeah.
I saw the book. I said, you have to come on now. And, you know, I've been bumping into you, well, for years, but Long
Yeah.
Island business circles. And that's good. So thank you so much.
Thank
I've
you.
really enjoyed it. And guys, like, comment, and share. Thanks so much.